Vestner used to work in the DA's office as a victim witness advocate.
Oh,
So when I was in Lowell District Court, I'd see him. So
Okay.
I'm talking to him, and I see him. So he works as SORB now, Sex Registry Offenders Board.
He is, yeah, he's been on there for quite
Hello.
a while. Christine, how are you?
What's happening?
Sorry, I just got cornered, but I got 2 minutes.
Take your time. Take your time.
Did you get all the stuff that I sent this afternoon?
I'm not worried about it.
Because I have copies of everything.
I mean, if they give it to us at 4:30 before the prelim, good care.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I was,
As a result of December 7th,
Yeah.
I started off by, I'm like, am I going to read on this? So,
like I said, the paper does not do this community
no. So can I have your attention, please? We'll be starting up shortly. Good evening and welcome to the Lowell Planning Board for February 5th, 2018. First matter on the agenda would be the approval of the January 18th, 2018 minutes. The board members have any corrections or comments for those minutes?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the minutes as submitted.
Second.
Motion made and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those minutes have been approved. We have two new businesses on tonight, and then we have a preliminary hearing, which is not a public hearing, and then we have a discussion matter. The first matter under the new business is a special permit extension for 725, 741, 749 Merrimack Street. On November 27th, 2007, the board granted a special permit under Section 8.1 of the City of Lowell zoning ordinance for the conversion of existing buildings to redevelop a vacant church located at the above address into a residential building unit with 50 dwelling units and a parking lot with 53 spaces at the corner of Merrimack Street and Aiken Street. James Harrington has requested an extension of the special permit for a period of two years to February 1, 2020. May we hear from the applicant, please?
Mr. Chairman, before we begin the hearing, just for the record, I will be abstaining on this matter.
Okay. Oh, I'm fine.
You know, we've been before you before with this request, and we're going to spend 19 of the 50 units in the building. The time when the development initially began, the market changed dramatically, and much of the project kind of went in a slower phase, was put on hold. At this point, with the other things he has going on, he anticipates that over the next year or so, there'll be some substantial improvements made in the project, so we're looking to have the special permit extended for a 2-year period.
Thank you. Any of the board members have any questions at this time? No questions? Any questions? I'll make a motion that we approve the extension for the special permit for a period of 2 years to February 1st, 2020.
Second.
Motion made and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
That motion carries. 3 votes for and none against. Good luck. Thank you very much. The next matter I'm going to take out of order, because this will be a short-minded matter. It's a discussion on 205, 207 Market Street. The proponent has made a design change to the previously approved hotel and redevelopment of the existing Athenian Corner restaurant. The proposed change includes moving the proposed function room and utilities from the existing building to the penthouse of the hotel. May we hear from the applicant on that matter?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Jim Dejokas, project architect. Basically, we went through a design change for what it was National Historic would did not see anything that put on top of the existing Putnam building. And so we're adhering to that. We'd like to shift everything that was proposed on top of that onto the new building. And everything's gonna stay the same. Same on the units, same on the function, same restaurant, same footprint. All the building shifts and things, so they keep it economically viable.
So you can't put on a new development, but you can put on the existing. Is that correct?
The opposite, we can't,
Oh.
what we had proposed
Was on
on top of
the new,
what would be the fifth floor of the existing building.
Right.
Everything floor is down.
okay,
There was a function facility that was proposed on top that was approved.
gotcha.
No longer proposing that, taking that existing and putting it on top of what is the addition.
Okay, I understand. Okay. Any board members have any questions? Sure.
I just have one. Is this been approved by the historic board, or is it being approved?
We already sent out a couple of times, and that's the direction that they wanted us to
Okay.
Steve Stoller, constructed the national artist, and we would work with them throughout the whole process to make sure everything's
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Fischett, any questions?
Mr. Chairman, that was my question. So.
Okay. Mr. Necessity, any questions? No? Okay. So the first question we have to make is whether this is a substantial or material change, or whether it's a minor change or not.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that it is to determine that this is not a substantial and material change to the original approved plan.
I'll second that.
Motion made and seconded by Ms. Malovich. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Now, we need a motion to approve the modification as requested.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we approve the modification as requested and that the applicant continue to work with the Historic Board on this issue.
And can I just make a note that they give a complete new as-built set of plans to DPD when completed?
When completed, yes.
Thank you. Motion approved. Good luck. Thank you very much. Okay. Moving along to a public hearing, we have a site plan review and special permit at 850 Lawrence Street. An application was submitted by Any Heritage Properties for a redevelopment of a 4-story mill structure into 71 residential dwelling units and for improvements to the associated parking area. The subject property is located in traditional mixed-use zoning district. The project requires site plan review and special permit approval under Section 11.4 and Section 8.1 from the Planning Board and any other relief required under the Lowell zoning ordinance. May we hear from the applicant, please? Sure, absolutely. Sure, that's fine.
Mr. Chairman, members, thank you for having us. My name is Jeff Bush. I am an employee at Heritage Properties and son of Brian Bush, who was here before you 2 weeks ago to present this project. Brian's had an accident at work, regrets not being able to be here physically, but I'm sure he's watching.
We wish him well. You're welcome.
I'm here with Chris Peterson from our team as well, and a number of associates, including Catherine Flood, our legal representation, Jack Sullivan from Gavin Sullivan, our architect, and Brian Gaudreau, who is our engineer, will be here shortly. We are excited to be back in front of the board tonight, present this project to you and the public. It is my understanding that my colleague presented this presentation to you 2 weeks ago, but in light of the public attendance, I'd like to go through some of the presentation too.
Absolutely. Because what happens at the preliminary hearing doesn't count when it comes to the public hearing, so we're going to start from scratch. Thank you.
So I'd be glad to give you a brief presentation and then open up any questions you may have or questions.
Thank-
I'd also like to mention that I'd like to extend our sincerest thanks to the city, we've met with Diane and Trad, folks at the DPD to help us move this project along quickly, and we greatly appreciate that. The project currently proposed is the redevelopment of an underutilized mill, 71 apartment units, 68 of those units being one-bedroom units, and 3 of them being studios. The site that we're contemplating is currently 2
fast forward. Just so that people don't hear it.
This one might fit.
Those electricians.
Is that better? Thank you. As I was saying, the Concord River Greenway is a large amenity to this site, and as Chris points, you can see the proposed expansion here. That expansion would actually intrude slightly into the 852.5 parcel, but we've been in talks with the city to arrange some mutually beneficial easements, both for our use and theirs, to facilitate the occurrence of this greenway. So as the proposed developer, we are very excited about the possibility of the Concord River Greenway expanding and access from this site. Chris, if you go to the next slide. This is just a photo of the existing conditions of the building. For those of you who can see, it's a very beautiful old mill building. It was originally used as a corduroy mill back in 1910. We at Heritage Properties are very excited about the potential of bringing this property back to life, and we think with your cooperation we can get that done. The current building, as I mentioned, is in good structural condition. The roof has been preserved, which has saved a lot of the interior of the building. The facade has had some temporary windows placed in that don't speak to the historic character of the building, but the facade is actually in pretty good shape. So it's nice to see that old character of the building preserved. As I mentioned, we're proposing 71 units, 68 one-bedroom and 3 studios. Chris, if you go to the next slide, please. This is an idea for you of what the project should look like when it's finished. Chris, if you go to the next slide, please. And these are some more renderings provided to us by the architect. So you can see that we anticipate replacing the windows with historically accurate windows throughout the building where possible. On the interior unit on the top right, you can see that the typical unit will have 2 large windows in the living room and 1 large window in the bedroom, providing ample natural light for our residents. That's something people really enjoy, and we're excited about the potential of bringing that here. Additionally, we'll do our best to leave the ceilings exposed. They're in pretty good shape, so there will be nice, dramatic, high ceilings for the residents. We're very excited. Other amenities within the units will include, yes. Why don't we go to the video now? I'll give you just a brief rendering of what this will look like from the outside. Go to the outside one first, please. Yeah, thank you. So this is the face of the building from the west elevation. We'll have a new lobby entrance, lots of windows to be preserved, green space and an ample walkway up to the building, which will also provide access for the fire department. The existing bridge will be spruced up a little bit to make it a little more visually appealing. The parking lot here you can see, and across the way over the river, which is on the east side, as I mentioned, you can see where that existing Concord River Greenway is. That little building to the left of the building on the east side is an old outhouse that was used for incinerating. We anticipate making that an outdoor amenity space if possible. And this is what the face of the building will look like from the existing and improved Concord River Greenway. You can go ahead, yeah, thank you. This is another rendering of the building from the interior. So you'll walk into a split-level lobby with elevator and stairwell access to the second floor. This shows you what a typical hallway will look like. You'll note the exposed beams, and those ceilings will be the original exposed ceilings where possible. So you walk down the hallway at the end, you can see an existing firewall that will remain. And then we take a right here into one of our units. So this is what a typical one-bedroom would look like. You'd have a kitchen with a bit of a breakfast bar, large living room, ample space for entertaining, 2 large windows. There would be kitchen cabinets above the islands there. And then we've discussed using barn doors for entrance into the bedroom and bathroom. And again, the bedrooms will have one of those large windows and ample space for a large bed as well. So we feel that these unit layouts are very ideal, and we're lucky that the building lays out the way it does because it sort of lends itself to creating these wonderful one-bedroom units that we've noticed a lot of demand for. Chris, if you would go to the next page. Again, I apologize, it's hard to see, but this is a rendering of the proposed ground floor or first floor, and where you can see the yellow highlighter, those indicate amenity spaces for the use of our residents. So we have a number of amenities that we'd like to include in this building that we feel would foster a sense of community and allow the residents to really feel at home. Those include indoor bike storage, addressing a national trend we've noticed of increased bike commuting that we feel would be facilitated by the Concord River Greenway. A dog wash. As funny as that may sound, a number of our residents currently express an interest in having a dog wash, and pets are becoming a large part of people's lives, so we'd like to accommodate that where possible. We've also discussed adding a co-working space or a community room so that residents have a place to foster that sense of community and also have somewhere else to do their work if they're working from home that isn't just their apartment. We will also have an on-site property management office for when our personnel are there. We also anticipate on having maintenance space for our techs to have shop space in the building. And then we also have a gym, you'll note, to the far right corner of the building, again, for our residents' use. And as I keep mentioning, the Concord River Greenway is a massive amenity for us here. That sort of concludes my initial overview of the project. If there are any questions that you'd like me to address now, I'd be happy to do so or yield the floor.
No, not at this time, thank you.
Great, thank you. Would you like us to leave that there or take it with us?
Sure, why don't you leave it up there, Kate, so if we have any questions or comments, we'll have you come up and change those, okay? So does anybody else want to speak on, who's with you from the applicant's team?
No, that'll be all.
Okay? So at this point in time, what I'll do is I'll turn it over for any comments from the public. Anybody here this evening want to speak in favor of this project? Anybody want in favor? Just come to the microphone, please, give your name and address, please.
My name is Jane Calvin. I'm with the Lowell Parks and Conservation Trust. We're really pleased to see that the Greenway is being so just included. I love having it being described as a massive amenity, and that they're very excited about it. It's just really wonderful to work with a project like this. From the get-go, Mr. Bush has been extremely supportive of the Greenway and recognizes that it's an amenity for his building. There are several different components of the project. Well, there are several different ways that Centennial Island is used for public access, especially by the Lowell Parks and Conservation Trust. And I've been pleased that Mr. Bush has been amenable to including that kind of access. On the northern end is the hydroelectric plant, and they've been accommodating in terms of allowing access for the owner of the hydro plant, but that will also allow us to have access so that we can monitor rafting and for safety of rafting for the whitewater rafting program, because that's a key safety access point for the whitewater rafting program that we operate with Zora Outdoor, and it's also a key photo point. As well as on the southern end of the island, there's a fish ladder. And the fish ladder is owned by Centennial Hydro, and they've been wonderful to work with. And just last year, we brought back a citizen science fish monitoring program. We're working with the Fish and Wildlife Service, NOAA, Mass Division of Fisheries and such to monitor fish at the fish ladder. And Mr. Bush has said that he would work with us in providing parking passes or whatever, so that during the short period of time in the spring that we need access for volunteers to be able to get to the ladder, it means traversing the development, he would be amenable to that. So we're happy that that's been made possible. And then, of course, just it's also nice to be here again in terms of advocating for another trail connectivity project in the city. So the upcoming phase of the Concord River Greenway will close the remaining gaps that we have. So this section here, the bridge that comes over from Lawrence Street, will then travel north up Centennial Island, cross over to the Centennial Housing the Centennial Housing Apartments, the Centennial Apartments, I guess, and up to Jolene Debner Park. And there's already a section from Jolene Debner Park to the Centennial Apartments that's already been built. And of course, it's also really wonderful that this project includes bike storage, dog washing, all those things that are really trail-friendly. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have in terms of how the Greenway integrates with the project, so I'll stick around, but thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else like to speak in favor?
Sharon Galpin with the Friends of the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail. I'm on the board. I just want to speak in support of the project for two reasons. The Concord River Greenway is a marvelous resource for Lowell, as I'm sure you know. So anything that enhances that trail and allows it to continue is just a really good benefit. So for that reason, we support it as a standalone entity. The Bruce Freeman Rail Trail currently goes from Westford to Lowell. It terminates in Lowell at the Cross Point Towers. And we are working on extending that into Lowell, have worked with Jane over the years to hopefully connect that trail to the Concord River Greenway, which would give people access directly to downtown Lowell, which would be marvelous because the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail will be going much farther south also. That will be opening in the spring, actually, through Acton. To have those two trails connect would be excellent. And there is a great deal of traffic that comes out of Lowell on the railroad, on the existing right-of-way on the railroad, just foot traffic on an unimproved walkway. It's a trail that people use. So we're working to extend our bike trail into Lowell and eventually connect to the Concord River Greenway and maybe even come across over to Lawrence Street. And that would give us access to the Centennial Island access to their greenway. So we do support it completely and hope that the project goes forward.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Board, my name is Fred Faust. I reside at 52 Lawrence Drive, which is distinguished from 850 Lawrence Street. I'm a broker for the trust that owns the property presently, which is represented by Dirk Casagrande, who's here and present. So obviously, as a broker, I'm in favor of the project, but more importantly, I'm speaking here as a member of the community. We've been involved with Mr. Casagrande for over a decade. This property has a lot of challenges. It either has to be done the right way or it can't be done. In fact, the city changed the zoning a number of years ago, and really the only conforming zoning for redevelopment of this property would be as residential. The confluence of timing is important here in terms of the variances that are being sought by the developer. We've also worked with Brian and Jeff on this project and other projects, and we find them to be extremely responsible, and they'll do a great job in this project. But their plan is really incumbent on the improvements that have been proposed for the Greenway. If this use doesn't happen or if it's delayed, the trust really has to wait to see what the uses will be to know if parking and adjacencies and setbacks and green space can be effective in the same manner. So the timing is important here. But again, working with many of the community groups, including the Lowell Waterways Group, Lowell Heritage Partnership, Jane's group, and others, we just see this as a major amenity for the city, as has been described here, and so we would urge your support.
Thank you, sir.
Emily Teller, Friends of the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail. I'm on the board also with Sharon. I would just like to say it's fabulous to see a building like this rehabbed for residential use. I think the character of these kind of buildings speaks to people's souls in a different way than new construction, and I think it's pretty wonderful. I also didn't realize that the fish ladder was here, and I think people who are moving into the city are looking for ways to connect with nature, and I would think that some of the residents of this building might want to get involved in that kind of activity, literally in their front yard, and then also get to know the trust better and some of the activities that they do in town. The Bruce Freeman Rail Trail is about 2 miles from this, and as Sharon mentioned, we are having a ribbon cutting on May 2nd to open the 4.8 miles that now extend the Westford terminus through Westford Carlisle and Acton to the Prison Rotary, Route 2 Rotary. And then the next 2 phases are under design, and in Concord it's under construction. So we're talking about 15 more miles. And eventually, as you know, it will go to Framingham. So it's quite a resource for people in Lowell to access to get out of the city, into the woods, and into some other commercial areas. So I'm very much in favor of this project. I did have a question. Do the windows open? Can anybody answer if the windows open?
They will be operable, yes.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else want to speak in favor at this time? Anyone else? Anyone else? Anybody in opposition? In opposition? In opposition? Hearing none, at this time, I'll turn it over to any question the board members may have.
I have one
Yes.
question.
Mr. Malovich?
I noticed in the old picture that smokestack is there. You're not preserving the smokestack?
I can speak to that. The smokestack is actually located on a parcel adjacent to ours. So it is not owned by the 850 Lawrence Street, which is the parcel in 852.5 that we are proposing to purchase. The condition of the smokestack is of considerable deterioration, and we've had preliminary discussions with the inspector within the city about the status of it. It is his opinion that it ought to come down, but given that the parcel is currently in tax title, the city would have to condemn it and then put out an RFP for somebody to take it down. We are of the position that we would be willing to do that. Would the city indemnify us against, we'd basically have to trespass. And so we'd be willing to do that at our own cost and risk, but we need sort of the cooperation and the movement of the city beforehand.
Okay, does it affect your tax credit?
No, because it's actually not,
Situation.
it looks to be adjoined to the parcel and the building, but it's not. It's, believe it or not, removed. And so it's not deemed to be contributing to the building's historic nature.
Okay. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Any of the board members have any questions? Mr. Fischett, any questions, or?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a few questions on the memo from February 2nd from Hancock Associates regarding the dumpster.
Sure.
And I know we had comments from from Gunther Wallenstein regarding the adequacy of that dumpster, and I think he was pretty adamant that it had to be at least 12 yards. If you could speak a little to that, I would appreciate that.
Sure. In response to the letter from Hancock Engineering, they were remiss in addressing the garbage and not the recycling because, in their opinion, they thought the question pertained to the garbage. So to clarify, that pad is designed to house 2 8-yard dumpsters, one which would be used for trash, one which would be used for single-stream recycling. 2 things in terms of why we chose that sort of dimension. One, as your notes had noted previously, that pad is slated to be located on city land with an easement from the city, so we didn't want to get overzealous in the size of that pad. And additionally, our experience is it's more efficient and better management practice to have a smaller dumpster that is serviced more frequently because it addresses overflow more rapidly than to have one large dumpster that sits up to a week at a time. So I believe our current plan, our management plan, which is flexible and can change at the drop of a hat based on need and observed conditions, would be to have the 8-yard trash dumpster removed 3 times per week by a contractor and the recycling 8-yarders removed twice per week. So.
I'm sorry, the recycle was
Twice per week with the 8-yard container, yes. And again, that's the kind of thing where if were we to have occupancy in the building and to note that that was not sufficient. It's a simple phone call to the contractor to have that frequency changed.
And if you could, and I know speaking to the variances you're looking at, I mean, really for a reuse of an existing building, especially a mill building, that is probably all the variances we look at every time an applicant comes before us. And quite frankly, if we didn't account for that, probably we wouldn't see a viable economic reuse of most of the mill buildings in the city of Lowell. Just to kind of dissect what you're proposing and how it relates, certainly with the variance you're looking for on the parking, the fact that the 71 units, they're all one bedroom and you have studio units. Not really thrilled with the small units, but really I think that actually speaks to the fact that you're probably not going to have a high demand for vehicles based on who's going to live in a 475 square foot studio apartment. And the lot area per dwelling unit, again, if you were to compute that out, you'd have 25 units in a, in a mill building. You're never going to get that to work. The usable open space, can you give us a little idea of what you're doing with the landscaping, if anything, on this? And I know it's kind of tough because you've got, I mean, obviously the parking is important, and you've got the building is a dominant building on the site. But if you could kind of just give us a little idea of what you're looking at on the landscaping.
If you don't mind, I'll have Chris come back to give you a visual.
Absolutely, yeah.
Just one point of clarification on the unit size. That 470 square foot is just one unit, so it's not, I know we're only requesting 6, but it's not all 6, just for reference. You go to the next one, please, Chris. Thank you. So anything green here will be green when our landscaping is done, and we have not submitted a landscape plan. Again, this is conceptual and sort of preliminary. If you look to the east side of the building, which is on this display, appears to be on top of the building, what we anticipate doing is putting a gate on the northeast corner of the building, just to prevent access for anybody who's not a resident. There will also be fencing along the canal for safety, or along the river for safety reasons. And then, as I mentioned, there's that outhouse. So what we sort of imagine is having a green lawn there, some plantings to sort of visually shield from the residents who do live on the first floor, but then to provide a key code to our residents so that they can access that space. We anticipate that in the spring, summer, and fall, that will just be an absolutely magnificent place to spend some time outside. Additionally, one of the main reasons for our request to land bank those 16 parking spaces is the considerable green area you see on top. Chris, if you would just point to where those land bank spaces are. Here. So that would be green space. There will be some retainage for water runoff there, but again, try to keep that green and visible. And then the other area of interest would be if you see so if you come over the bridge, you take a right, and that brings you to our main entrance. That first portion will be paved for fire access to the building, but we anticipate having some chairs or benches for our residents to be able to spend some space outside. Unfortunately, we don't own or have access to the parcel at the head of the island to the right on this representation. We think in future use that would be a wonderful place for green space, but again, it's not really ours to take control of. And then the rest of the site is more or less parking, with the exception, again, of the Concord River Greenway. We have not gotten indications from the city of how they intend to landscape that, whether that'll be a fence that sort of abuts our parking lot or whether or not that will just be sort of open.
Thank you. That's a good segue for Jane to kind of give us some indication as to the Concord River Greenway, as to how it's going to dovetail into this site. And Jane, has the applicant been working with you on this? Or, okay, so if we can have just kind of how that's going to dovetail into the site.
I did have a meeting with Brian Bush at his offices. The trail's coming from the Lawrence Street side where it's already completed. That currently thank you. That currently ends at a fence. All the way at where that 90-degree curve is, there's a fence there. just beyond the curve, there's a fence. There's already a turnout built into the Lawrence Street and that opposite side of the river. And then there's a steep grade, fairly steep for this type of trail, from that side of the river down to the island. So it needs to be a long stretch, and there's a little bit more of an angle to it than what you're seeing there, to accommodate that grade change. So the reason for the turn about where the parking area is, and the reason why the project is impinging upon their property, is because of that grade change and the need to accommodate and safely allow people to safely turn if they're on a bike or another other type of transportation.
Does it have to meet ADA requirements for
It does
a
meet
pitch? Yeah, I
ADA.
saw that.
It does meet ADA, yeah. So it'll actually be elevated right at that curve. Right there, it'll be elevated and grading down still. There are pieces of public art that have already been built and for example, there's a granite bench. I'm not exactly sure what's going to go at this location, but there is some other landscaping, but that's been designed into that end of the trail.
Now, how is that being coordinated with the developer? Is the developer doing any of that, or is that, how is that?
As far as the landscaping
Yeah.
goes, I don't know how detailed a conversation the city has had with Mr. Bush on that at this point, but we can certainly have those conversations, I'm sure, working so closely together with the city.
Okay, good. Thank you. Mr. Bush? Has there been any conversations relative to landscaping that, at that point, is it on your, it's on your property, is that correct?
Yeah, so the city actually owns a parcel, a very slim parcel to the east, or the top portion of where you see that greenway coming in. If you see on this representation, the blue represents sort of the embankment, and as I mentioned before, the orange line represents our property. So in between the two is actually owned by the city.
Okay.
So where it comes over is city land, and then it crosses onto our parcel, makes that sort of turn, and then back onto city land eventually. So the conversations we've had with the city were mainly regarding the location. That was the most important component for both us and the current owners before we could reach something that was agreeable to all three parties. The next component will sort of be timing, so when our project is built, as well as when this is built, and coordinating access. And I'm sure we'll continue to discuss with the city exactly whose responsibility the landscaping will be. As an aside, we've committed to the city informally, we've volunteered to do some of the landscaping maintenance on sort of where it abuts onto our parcel in that section, because as I mentioned before, we feel strongly that this is an important part of both our development and the revitalization of this neighborhood, and so we'd like to play our part in keeping that vibrant.
I mean, that's really an amenity you're offering the people that will be living there, really. I mean,
Exactly. And we feel that it's an amenity for the bike path to have a development there, because it will bring attention and light, a lighted space, as well as
more positive activity, the safer it is.
Exactly.
Okay. Good, very good. And I believe in the, one of the memos as well is the regarding the snow storage, that you're in agreement that obviously you'd have to remove the snow if that became an issue on the site?
Yeah, so we met with the city on last Monday, I believe, with the fire department to discuss their concerns about snow storage in the fire area, turnaround area. We feel very strongly that there will not be any snow there. We will take aggressive measures to make sure that there's not. Same with parked cars. Again, I apologize, it's light, but in the blue we've highlighted where Hancock has indicated snow storage, and so that's where we expect it to go. Additionally, we have a project in Providence, Rhode Island, that's a mill that's in a rather tight parcel, and our contracts with all of those snow removal companies says that if snow accumulation gets to the point where we can no longer sufficiently store it, it's to be removed off-site. We anticipate the same here.
And then, just, Christine, the meetings with the, I saw the email we received from the fire department, so I'm assuming there's nothing left for the fire department to sign off on, as far as
As far as the site,
the site goes.
They'll
as
sign
far as
off
site.
on building
Exactly,
permits.
as far as the building permit, right, okay. All right. And the dumpster screening, what were you proposing to, how were you proposing to screen the dumpster?
Visual screening, you mean?
Yes.
We intend to have a pen that will be accessible from a side entrance for the residents that will be ADA compliant, and then we'll have a gate on the front, essentially, that will be locked with the exception of the contractor to remove that.
And what will be the material, what will be the,
We haven't made that determination yet.
Chain link with a privacy screening, the slats.
slats? And what type of fencing are you putting along the back? You'd mentioned,
We anticipate that will have to be approved by the historic, for the historic component of our tax credit. So we'd like to do something like wrought iron or equivalent that we think, again, is sort of indicative of the character of the building. Currently, it's chain link, and we're definitely opposed to that.
Yeah.
But we have not solidified a material.
I certainly would love to see the wrought iron. I think that would be a.
Yeah, and we think, we want, as one of the abutters mentioned before, we want to see this property done right. We really only have one chance, and we think it's a significant asset to the city. And so we'd like to do everything we can to make sure it's done appropriately.
And again, who has jurisdiction over imposing what the fence looks like? Is that?
As far as historic,
Yes.
or, well, so we're outside the historic district of the city, so it would, if it was of historic question, that would go to the federal historic, the National Park Service, basically.
Christine, question on that. So if we had that as a condition, would the national parks have, that is on the site, right? That is
That would be located on our parcel, yes.
on your parcel? I'm confused as how they would have jurisdiction over.
it's not the, well, it is the national park, but not the downtown historic district. It's the Mass
Right.
Historical Commission, and they
Okay.
work with the national park in DC, the federal offices
Right.
on. So Steve Stoll wouldn't have, wouldn't go in front of the historic board for a vote, but he would work, he sort of play the middleman.
Okay.
But I don't know if fencing would fall under that tax credit jurisdiction.
Right,
But I do know that a fencing location would be of interest to the Conservation Commission,
yeah.
so,
But how that fence would look would be of interest to the planning board and site plan. That's why I just want to make sure.
Because, Fred Faust, because they're applying for tax credits, this has to be reviewed by the Interior Department in Washington. The Interior Department works closely with the National Park here, so while the National Park doesn't have legal jurisdiction, they will advise the tax credit folks. And anything that's done on the site will be applicable to the federal tax review and by the Department of Interior in Washington.
And the tax credits, what is the nature of the tax credits, though? So are they looking at it from a historical perspective?
Yeah, so they look, you go through a three-part process with them. The first is to identify that the building is of historic character or is a contributing building to an existing zone, historic zone. So we just had that come back to us, and this building is contributing to the zone that it's in. The next step will be for us to propose the work that we intend to do. And if any of that work, all of that work has to be acceptable to the Department of the Interior. So, for example, if we were to put replacement windows in instead of the accurate windows, they would entirely cut our funding for the tax credits, which would be obviously a huge detriment to us. So.
So if we were to put a condition that the fencing, and really that's a safety issue, and that really is site plan review.
Sure.
And that, I think we'd probably give you an out on that as far as, obviously, if it affects the tax credits, but certainly I would love to see, wrought iron, black wrought iron fence, or at least a look. As you know, there's a lot, what's out there today can give you that look, but not obviously that quality.
Of course.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Snetsky, any questions, comment?
I think all the questions have been answered that I was going to ask, and, you know, I think you're going about this the right way, and it's potentially a very good project.
Thank you.
I just have a couple of comments. I know they came up with a preliminary, and we did receive a letter now that was talking about the vehicle bridge that was going over it, and I believe we have a letter that was addressed to Mr. Sullivan indicating that the bridge, it appears to have been designed for loading, and the loading would be appropriate for the standard for the fire truck loading. I know we didn't come up with a preliminary hearing, but now you did give us a letter indicating that that would currently meet inspection and would be fine with that. Because I know that came up last time, so that's not a problem now, so we have, that shows that the bridge will be able to cover any fire trucks going in, correct?
Correct.
Okay. There was a question on, like we said, the fire department got okay on it. Now, you have Romalo's Gym there. Before, when you come in, you said that they were gonna get relocated, and you're gonna work with them. Do you know where they might be get relocated to? Or, I know that was something you mentioned at the preliminary plan.
Yep, as mentioned before, we are hoping that they will be able to relocate within the city of Lowell, and we had agreed with the seller at the signing of the purchase and sale that if it got to the point where the property was going to be purchased and Romalo's had not been able to find a location, that we would work with them to try and find somewhere. So no real firm commitments on that yet. I have not spoken with Arthur Romalo about his current status in finding a new place.
Because I think, who was here last time, said they ended up watching the movie before they came before us to make sure they saw the gym again. Who was that?
That's Brian Bush, my
Brian,
father.
okay, yeah, I remember saying, oh yeah, I had to go watch that movie again, The Fighter, so I knew what piece of property we were talking about.
I must confess I did the same.
Yeah, I think that was him. Yeah, it was something, I knew it was something brought up at the preliminary meeting. So, so you'd have no objection on doing your landscaping plan to be approved by Plan and Development?
I believe that's correct. Yes.
Landscape plan? Okay. I just have, give me for 1 second. Christine, does staff have any further comments except for what you gave us in the handout, or basically? Okay. I see that you responded to most of the commentaries that were given to you by planning staff, and you gave us a new set of plans dictating those as well?
That's correct.
Thank you. I think we received those just recently, right? Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. I have no more questions at this time.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So what's the request of the board? So we have 2 matters in front of us tonight. We'll need 2 motions. One is a site plan and one is a special permit. And as indicated, that they'll be going before the zoning board of appeals next Monday, and then they go before the Conservation Commission in the future after that. So.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to, we're looking at 2 motions, so I'll make a motion to approve the site plan.
Sure.
Mr. Chairman, with the following conditions, that prior to the start of site work, the proponent, along with the general contractor, shall participate in a pre-construction meeting with the appropriate departments and staff. Erosion control measures should be approved by DPD prior to site work. Prior to building permit, the applicant should receive final approval from the city engineer, DPD, and Lowell wastewater utility on final stormwater management plan. Prior to occupancy, the applicant shall submit the following to DPD: a final as-built plan. All easements shall be recorded prior to the issuance of the occupancy permit. I know we didn't talk about that in great detail here this evening, but there are several easements that will be obtained with this project as well. And it would be the easements that are in the proposal. The letter signed by the engineer stating that all building, site work, and landscaping have been completed and comply with the plan is approved by the planning board, and any changes to the plan shall be reviewed by DPD. Also, in the event that the snow storage is not sufficient, snow should be removed off-site. Snow disposal into the city right-of-way or waterways is strictly prohibited. The applicant also shall screen the dumpsters as proposed on the site plan. The applicant will work with DPD to finalize a landscape plan, and the applicant shall work with the city and Parks and Conservation Trust on the landscape and maintenance portion of the Concord River Greenway that intersects the applicant's site. And the applicant will install a fence along the Concord River on the site that is in keeping with the historical integrity of the site. So I'll leave you some room on that one in working with your historic tax credits. I believe that
Okay,
would be it, Mr. Chairman.
so we have a motion on the floor for the site plan with several conditions.
I'll second that.
Motion's made by Mr. Snetsky. All in favor, say aye.
Aye?
Aye.
Chair votes yes. Any opposition? Hearing none, the site plan is approved. 4 in favor, none against. And now we need a vote on the special permit. I'll make a motion that we approve this special permit with the same conditions as outlined on the site plan.
I'll second that.
Motion's made and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye?
Aye.
And any opposition? Hearing none, the special permit is approved also with the exact conditions. 4 in favor and none against. Good luck and thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, moving along on the agenda, we have what's known as a preliminary plan, which means this is not a public hearing, and the planning board will not be voting on this matter tonight. This matter is subject to a public hearing, which will be held on Thursday, February 22nd. That correct, Christine? Okay, so our public hearing for this matter is for February 22nd. So this matter is a preliminary site plan application for the addresses listed at 585, 591, 605, 609.1, 619, 629, 639 Market Street, 616, 628, 636, 646, 650, 666 Merrimack Street, and 23 Cabot Street. As the applicant refers to it, it's 665 Merrimack, 650 Merrimack Street. So the planning board will render no decision this evening. This is a preliminary plan brought before the applicant for us tonight for a conceptual hearing only. As indicated, the planning board will not be able to vote on this tonight, so it will be on for a public hearing on February 22nd, where all members will be able to speak, and the planning board will hold a public hearing on that matter. However, I will allow people to speak this evening, but knowing that the comments tonight really should be reiterated at the public hearing, because that what goes down to, if we're held accountable, it's what's said at the public hearing, not at the preliminary hearing. So basically, the preliminary hearing doesn't count when it comes to our vote, because we don't vote. So the voting really pertains to what we hear at the public hearing. So saying that, I'll turn it over to the applicant.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. George Theodoro, 133 Market Street, appearing for the applicant. The applicant, Mr. William Fideli. And here tonight, I'd like to introduce to you Mr. Fideli, as well as Dan Thorne, our project architect, Steve Simonelli, and the civil engineer of Bob Clark, and also assistant counsel, Mr. Howard Levin. Thank you very much for allowing us to come here to appear before you to have this informal presentation. What we've done is we have focused on changes that we've made with respect to this submission that we changed from the prior submission some time ago. What we've done is we have listened to the feedback that we received. We listened to the feedback of the community. We're not going to make everyone happy. We understand that. However, we can incorporate some of the concerns and some of the changes into this new submission. We were happy to do so. We wanted to point out again that this is a development of a 57,000 square foot site, which is primarily vacant right now, except for a couple of buildings that are currently on there, which was the old branch of the Jeanne d'Arc Credit Union. This has been left undeveloped for the past several years, ever since the credit union went ahead and redeveloped their downtown branch across the street and built a new state-of-the-art branch on Merrimack Street. This project was selected for development as a private dormitory, and it goes back to what we have in the master plan with the city, which talks about this, identifies this Merrimack Street corridor, the upper Merrimack Street corridor, as an area that would be ideally slated for development to have a connection between the university on one side and the downtown on the other. This development of this site would also, in our opinion, be a catalyst to the redevelopment in this area, to redevelop this site to as a private dormitory, would place what we would project as 466 students, which would be an economic catalyst to the area, where students would be living, which would be walking through that corridor, the connection between the university and the downtown, patronizing local businesses, as well as creating an on-site need for additional businesses to open and service those students. So we looked at it's something that would need to be developed that would add additional tax revenue to the city, and we have put in there in our submission that we have there some of the projections that we have would be approximately $250,000 in added tax revenue to the tax base, which would be approximately $2.5 to $3 million over the next 10 years. In addition, the construction and permitting fees would initially would be upwards of approximately $500,000.
And when we go ahead and we add into that what it would do for the employment of the area through the construction of this project, through the electrical workers union, the sheet metal workers union, be additional tax revenue. So this would be fulfilling a vital community need to the city in establishing this and putting this back on this development on the tax rolls and provided needed revenue to the city. We know that there is objection from the university on this, and as we said, we can't satisfy everyone with respect to this plan. However, what we know that we're going to be building would be a quality dormitory here that would attract students to the university, attract students to this project, and attract students to the city of Lowell. And it would add to one of the main factors of the master plan would be to increase the role of the city of Lowell as a college town, as a hub in that sense. And that's what we believe this would do. Its proximity to the downtown and its proximity to the newly established University Crossing is a strategic location. One that would be well-served to have this private dormitory that, once constructed, would provide needed tax revenue to the city to fund services and needed services to the city for an ongoing basis. Now, what I'd like to do now is to have Mr. Steve Simonelli go over some of the changes that were done to the plan, which were done based upon some of the feedback that we received. Steve.
Good evening. My name is Steve Simonelli. I'm with J. Davis Architects. Just want to briefly revisit the design of the project and go over some of the improvements we've made upon it based on some feedback. So as we can see here from the project from before, it's well scaled within the community. Our firm is well-versed in multifamily and student housing. We focus on communities and how to make better projects for all forms of life and interaction with the community. One of the important parts of this project, which we're excited about, is the urban infill factor, giving an urban site and giving some new life to a block that hasn't had so much activity lately. We have our retail component on the first floor. We've allotted about 3,000 square feet for that. The community will also be furthered by the student interaction with the ground floor amenity space. And one of the newest additions is taking the corner of Cabot and Market Street. There we've put a multi-story entrance. This will be not only well lit and a beacon of that corner, it will help interact students through that corner to further their communication within the city and other parts of the neighborhood. In addition to the new entrance, which again is a big part of that corner, and the retail, we've looked closely at the lighting and the security of the streets, making sure that this feels like a warm and inviting space for all the students and those around it as they interact with the neighborhood. One of the biggest parts of the project is how it's going to, again, interact with the streets, the flow of the traffic, and so on. So for that, I'm going to turn it over to Bob Clark, who's going to talk about those points right there.
Hello, for the record, my name is Bob Clark from Allen & Major Associates. This project on the merits of engineering and technical review, I think, are pretty straightforward. We've addressed all the comments from the city staff, all the comments from technical review. We've rolled all those comments into this new application. We've also supplied a traffic management plan that we've added and encouraged the use of bicycles, pedestrian, and also public transportation, and that's been submitted in the application. The major thing here is parking. The development team has met with the city staff on numerous occasions since the last time we were in front of you to this time, and we thought we were putting forward a different project for parking. Right now, the current application is 93 parking spaces on site. We've worked out an agreement with the city for 50 parking spaces to be elsewhere from garage, but the city's agreed to 50 parking spaces. And we also submitted a lease for 120 parking spaces at the church right around the corner. So that gets us to 263 total parking spaces. In addition to that, the applicant was prepared to is prepared to make a contribution of $800,000 to a future project for the city. So that was all dealt and developed over a period of time. What I can say, again, the engineering is simple, the technical review is simple. We've been looking at adding another level to this parking garage. So the architect has come up with an option that we think that we can offer an option 2. So that's option 1, 263. And the thought was that would be a betterment to the community by the $800,000 and for a future project for the city. So option 2, if we do add another level and we can meet with there is no height requirement on the zoning, we can stay under a high-story, high-rise of 70 feet by adding another level, we can get 198 parking spaces on site. And then with the 50 that the city is on record of saying that they would be able to supply, we would get to 248 parking spaces as option 2. The applicant would be withdrawing the $800,000 contribution to this future city project. So we only have a few days to add additional information to this submittal. And tonight, we'd really like to get the flavor of the board, or the opinion of the board, of which direction you would like to see us proceed in. So again, option 1 is 263, combination on-site, church parking lot, and city. And then option 2 is 198 on-site with the 50 from the city, gets us to 248. Both scenarios do exceed the 233 parking spaces that would be required for the 50% reduction of the 466 beds. So with that, I'll turn it back over to George.
And what is important is we have worked with the Lowell Housing Authority and did speak with other interested parties in the neighborhood about the contribution of the $800,000 to go ahead and build some shared parking facility that would accommodate the needs in the acre, and to go ahead and contribute to Walker Associates, who's the city's parking consultant, traffic and parking consultant, to each of the parties contribute $1,000. We would contribute $1,000. The Lowell Housing Authority, I believe, was going to contribute $1,000, and the Jean Dac Credit Union, in addition, was going to contribute $1,000 to a parking study to locate specific areas in the acre that could accommodate a parking garage. Now, we've heard the comments from the counselors last week, and we have heard the comments about what we knew that in building this structure here, we were sensitive to the fact that in many ways we'd be creating our own hardships here. However, we had reached out to the Transfiguration Church and we provided a lease, which is a signed lease there as part of the agreement, and that would be a lease that would benefit us for parking approximately 550 feet away, and that would benefit the church by added revenue. We got a consensus that there were consensus that this may be too far away, even though it is on the way to the university crossing. So we went ahead and the applicant went ahead and redesigned and took a look and see if he can redesign this to add an additional parking deck. And so that the majority of the parking would be on this site, would be on the dormitory site to have 2 levels of parking. Right now, that number is 198. That may go up a few. We don't know exactly where it goes, but we heard the comments before, and we said, well, if we're going to come in with this, we'd have to pull that money off the table because that would be an additional investment into the building. We would lose some spaces there, and if it is the community that it's their position that putting all of these students there and their cars would strangle the residents of the community going up Salem Street, Merrimack Street, then we would go ahead and build this second parking deck. And we have already filed and ready for the public hearing. Publication is going out on Wednesday, but we wanted to come here and present this alternative plan. And we understand this is an informal presentation. We understand that what is binding at the public hearing, where the board would vote after the conclusion of the public hearing. However, we felt that it was important to come here to tell you first off some of the changes that we made, and also what we're offering with respect to parking for a new proposal. And we would request to have the input from this board to see with respect to a new proposal to have the parking, the majority of the parking on-site of close to 200 spaces, to see if, with respect to that component of this plan, that that's something that this board could consider.
Anything further, Counsel?
One of the other items that was discussed previously was 7.8, that we will be in full compliance with 7.8. That's a requirement, dormitory requirement for site plan review, that we will be in full compliance with that.
So that means you'll have a full-time person on staff there 24/7?
That is correct.
Okay.
We do have a factual submission, however, that is in this filing here, that a factual submission that we have with respect to what we have provided for as an academic building, which has instruction within 2,000 feet, and that is the one exception to this for not having a shuttle service, and that is the only exception to this. And we have a factual submission that is part of the application process. But in all other respects, we intend to comply. And we do have a traffic management plan that is included with the submission that details the traffic management and the transportation available to students to and from the dormitory. Just as a matter of course, there is an LRTA stop 1 block up from the building itself, the proposed dormitory, on just up from the intersection of Merrimack and Cabot Street. I believe it's about a block up about where the St. Vincent de Paul building is. There's a stop there. And we've been in discussions with the LRTA to see if we can move it down a block to have it across the street from the building. And with respect to the LRTA, there's a plan that's in place that all university students and faculty, I believe, ride for free. And as I said, the university crossing is right up the street from there. So we believe that this is a proposal that, given the parking crunch and putting the parking on site, what we've done is that we've removed that from that problem as we saw before. Although we thought we had some type of consensus in contributing to this, we understand that there's still pushback with respect to that plan. It's a long-term plan. Unfortunately, we can't offer it and put the parking on the site. That investment would have to go into the building. So again, we just ask for the input from the board with respect to that change and that proposal.
Thank you. Anybody here this evening want to speak in regards to this project? I know it's not a public hearing, but if someone comes down here, we'll be more than happy to hear from you.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me to
Sure.
speak.
Just state your name and record, and your name and address.
My
for the
name
record,
is
please.
Joe Grenham. I'm from Christian Hill. I've been here 66 years. I'm a member of the Bricklayers and Allied Craft Workers Union for 50 years. Also a member of the Merrimack Valley Building Trades and the Central Labor Council. These are the first people that ever came to us and offered a union project. And it's going to put 100 people to work. How can anyone be opposed to it? You know, you're going to, the acre needs a jump start, and they're offering the jump start, and people are opposing this? Gee whiz, 100 people from Lowell who are going to spend money at the Moulis's, at the Olympia, wherever it might be. I mean, they've done a good job. I've built Gillette Stadium, I've built many Natick malls, and they've done a good job. You know, they should have an opportunity to build this. The university, I mean, they can oppose it all they want, but gee whiz, help the acre out. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else like to speak?
Evening, gentlemen. Good evening, everybody. My name's Dave Willett, 113 Cabot Street, Lowell, president and founder of Action. That was some refreshing news I just heard about adding another deck on. I've been local 429 all my life, so I am union also myself, and I do agree this stuff, where they could be going union or are going union. And our thing wasn't about jobs. We know the acre does need not a jump start. We are doing very good right now. But on this project, my main concern and our main concern for the area is 100% the parking. That's what's created this mess for quite a bit of the people who live right here in the acre. So I'm more interested in seeing what you're coming up with the other plan. Have not seen that, haven't even heard about it till this very minute. On that, because the thing that we were looking at before is the distance of the church needed, it was 550, so it was 150 further than what it needed to be. But listening to what you just said right here, I put some numbers together, and I won't go through all the other stuff I said because you just threw me off a little bit saying that you're going to add a second deck. So we'll look at that a little bit further. But you were having a plan with the Greek church with Christian over here, and that was for, I believe it was $20,000 a year for whatever it was a year, for so many years. But if you go to the city lot and take those 50 spots, I guess it's $64 per person over there, and I don't believe you'd be covering the cost of that. That would be up to the students to cover that cost. So in the neighborhood, I was just wondering if you would stay with the plan with the parking garage and stay with him for half the number of spots, and it's still just right up the street. And like you said, it's on the way, it's on your walking path, and that would still help the community. You'd have more than enough parking. It'd be right there by, closer to the building, because I can't see a student walking from there. Because as the crows flies, it's 1,565 feet from the point to the point. But if you do the walking path, it's 200 and 600 and some odd feet, and that's what the person's going to do, because no college kid has wings. So they're going to actually be walking the street to be able to get over there. Don't need to read that now. So I still would like to like to hear some more of what you're coming up with that second parking plan. And as far as the 800, because the thing I was going to say with the 800, because I've lived in the acre all my life and walk it every day, and an extreme part of it, and I was trying to figure out on the study of where there was going to be a spot for the parking, and the only one that keeps coming up is the corner of Merrimack, Cabot, and Moody, which means eminent domain, and you'd have to take Bonnie, St. Vincent, and Truck Salon. That's the only thing that's around there. And just with that alone, that's $1,137,000 just in the taking of those buildings, and plus displacing a lot of good people. So putting parking on your site kind of alleviates a lot of that issue right there. And I'd love to hear just more about where you're going with this. And I see it evolving a bit. And so, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else like to speak?
My name is Maxine Farkas, and I live at Western Avenue Lofts in the Acre, and I'm a founding member of Action. I was going to address parking, but since they just dropped this little bombshell, I'm not going to. However, what if this project goes the way of the Edge and switches to a multifamily building? with 2 and 4 bedroom apartments. Right now, you need two spots per unit for multifamily. That would require 326 spots. It's nice that they're going to put another level in the garage, but that's not going to meet it if the project does not succeed. And we have evidence now that it's not working in Lowell. Now, the narrative stated that the project responded to neighborhood voices. Seriously? The bare minimum of commercial space on Merrimack Street. Less than 20% of the Merrimack Street facade is commercial. And there's no real plan. I've heard it's going to be an entrepreneur space for LHAA residents. It's going to be a meeting space for the CBA, but there's no plan. The entrance on the corner of Cabot and Market just happens to be about 550 feet from the church parking lot. That wasn't put in for access. It wasn't put in for activity on Market or Cabot. It was to meet a request for a variance. It gives them that would be their dimensional relief. They have another door that they put on Market Street. This was also, our concern was that it's a fortress. They put another door, just happens to be a fire exit. They put it glass instead of a fire exit. And it just happens to, it's tucked in right by the trash room. It's not even on the street, it's set back. I'm not going to quote Jane Jacobs again tonight. I'll wait, I'll keep her for the next meeting. But each fall, I give a lecture to the UML Honors College freshmen. I speak on the development of Western Avenue studios and lofts, and the historical geography of the area. This year, during the Q&A after my lecture, I asked students who don't live on campus why they don't live on campus. And the overwhelming response is they cannot afford to live on campus. And then I asked a friend who rents apartments to students how much he charges for a 3-bedroom apartment, which is $1,200 a month. Now, if this project can hit $400 a bedroom, yes, they will draw students. But if it's like their projects in Durham and elsewhere, it's going to be $800 a bedroom, and UML kids can't afford it. I've worked for union contractors. I've worked for non-union contractors. I understand the need for jobs. I understand them very well. But I also understand that over the long term, this neighborhood needs to be respected. And no matter what accommodation for parking is made, this is still out of scale to the neighborhood, and it is too dense a project for the neighborhood. I'll be back.
Thank you.
Thank you and good evening, members of the Planning Board. My name is Rita Mercier, and I come before you as in no official capacity, but as of a concerned resident of the city of Lowell, and the address is 221 Burnham Road. And I'm skeptical about this project. Of course we love to build. Of course we love to see union members working. It's a great idea, it's a great plan. Who wouldn't want to support the unions? I know they've supported me for a long time, but let me just say, when you think of where they're building this, it's right in the middle of a dense neighborhood. And I just want you to put on your thinking caps and think about this. And this is my concern. It's not that I don't want you to work. I want something built there, but I'm concerned about the parking because human nature is such in that you'll want to go to the nearest spot And I don't think you'll want to go to a garage, the Ayotte garage, or to the Transfiguration Church parking lot. At least I wouldn't. Human nature is such, I wouldn't do it, especially if I'm carrying groceries or whatever. And what if it doesn't work? The union, they built a dorm over at the edge, Merrimack River, 414 units of dorm, private dorm space, and it's not working there. And I don't know what's going to make this work, and if they turn it into units of housing for families, I don't know how it's going to happen. So that's nothing against the union. My husband was a union painter for all these many, many years. But I want you to think about this. Think about the concern that I have about parking. When we leave here, most likely, most of us or all of us will go home and we'll either park in our driveway, and if we don't have a driveway, we'll park in front of our houses. People that live in triple-decker blocks on Salem Street, or the housing people that have company coming over, I don't know how you're gonna find a place to park if everybody is parking on the street. That's a concern I have. When they say they wanna build, contribute $800,000 to put a study or possibly put a garage in the acre, what are they gonna do? Take down eminent domain and take down businesses, take down the St. Vincent de Paul where people probably only can afford to shop? I'm telling you that this neighborhood is being abused in that respect, and I think we ought to be a little more courteous. Put yourself in the position as if you live there. Think about this, because it happened to me in a very dense neighborhood in the Lower Highlands where people didn't have much parking, and then you think about how you parked, you shoveled a spot in a snowstorm, and you left to go to work, and you came back and somebody else had it. And that kind of frost your bonnet, you know what I'm saying? So I have more to say, but I think it should be addressed a little bit more. Sure, they'll build that. The union will do a great job in building that, but then we don't have the plans in place for the additional parking. Do we get a parking garage? Do we have another level of a parking spot in the top, a level floor? I don't know the rest of the answers here, and I think it's very uncertain. I could say a little bit more on the 22nd. I don't know if you'll hold what I say, take stock in what I said, but thank you for allowing me to do that. And I'm very, very sorry. I know you want a job, but it's a permanent decision, and people will be affected by it. There are people in this room that didn't want Colley Stadium in their neighborhood, but yet they'll be willing to put this albatross in a dense neighborhood. That's not fair. I'm just trying to be fair here. If they can come up with a plan that'll make everybody happy, so be it. But I don't see it. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm actually reading something for a person who is not here, and then I'll voice my own concerns. This is from Karen Cirillo as a resident at 77 6th Street. This project has come back into the same format as previously. Since this is the case, it shows they are not hearing the Acre neighborhood's voices. I am asking the planning board to reject the proposal of 650 Merrimack Street. Thank you, Karen Cirillo. And for myself, my name is Lorraine Farmer. I live at 33 Jacques Street, Lowell, Massachusetts. And my concern is what's happening with the edge. It's not just cookie cutter straight up, fill it with students. It's what's happening over at Edge. Why do we seem to not take that into consideration with this wonderful project? I know something's going to get built there and Lowell's going to improve, and that's great, but I think we need to kind of look over our shoulders as to what's going on over there, and we're forecasting something better that they did. That's my concern. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, members. My name is Kevin Semino, born and raised in Lowell. Excuse me. I have a son in the Lowell Public Schools. I have soon to be a second son. My wife graduated UML 2009 and 2017 as a master's in nursing. So we're vested here. And on a personal note, in 2010, we were slowly crawling out of a recession, and after 7 months of unemployment, I was able to work at the first phase of the Appleton Mills at the Hamilton Canal District. That was a very positive experience for me in my apprenticeship in Local 103. And I was also able to, in 2012, work for over a year at the Lowell Community Health Center. So these jobs, these local jobs, they can have a very positive impact on your residents. And personally, I grew up a stone's throw from College Stadium, and I'm very disappointed that we're not getting a brand new state-of-the-art school. But as far as the storm, I remember about 10 years ago, we were busing incoming UML students to Nashua because we didn't have dorms. And if you think about that, the dorm shortage was so bad, we couldn't even hold them in our state. And I can't imagine a dorm 3 blocks from the campus being a controversial thing. I mean, the campus is already there. It's in the neighborhood. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, member of the Planning Board. My name is Weston Noon. I'm reside at 10 Gibson Road, Lowell, Mass. First of all, let me just say this, that there's no doubt that this project will create jobs. I do applaud the WF investment for reaching out to the union and offer them the job. There's no question that they do that, so I appreciate that very much. But I'm also here to express my concern with this project. Parking. You heard a lot of people talk about parking. The previous plans talk about a requirement of 260 parking space. On site, they can only offer 93 parking space. They're going to lease about 120 from the Greek church, about a couple blocks away. And then the city, 50 parking spaces where at the Aort garage. That's concerned because parking near this project is a challenge. As you all know, students who are unable to find parking on campus tend to venture out to the unmetered parking that often used by resident and business customer, and that's a problem. Second to that is safety. I know they're talking about management 24/7 at that site. I want to see specific what kind of on-site management the developer offer. So what I'm saying is this, that I urge the planning board, I know this is preliminary, I urge the planning board to do the investigation as to the WF investment with their track record. I know they have done this private dormitory in Maine, in Texas. Just look at the edge. That's a really recent example of, not even half is filled at this point by student. And not all those 50% vacant occupancy, 50% occupancy, not all of them, I bet you, a student of UMass Lowell. So that is concerned as well. And so I want those 2 points that I just brought up, parking and safety, because if police have to respond to any incident at either site that take away our officers that need to respond at our neighborhood, in Centerville, Pawtucketville, Low Highland, or Back Central, or Belvedere for that matter. So I thank you for listening. I hope to come back at the next meeting. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, member of the board. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Well, Mr. Chairman and members of the board, thanks for letting me speak briefly. I have a few concerns about this project.
Sorry, can we have your name, please?
My name is Christopher Natali. I own a property adjacent to this proposed project at 586 Merrimack. I also own a property at 785 Merrimack, as well as a property at Market
I don't remember
Street.
it from last time, but you still have to state your name.
On Bauer Street near the
Thank you.
university. I have a few notes, but I'll just make a couple points. I think our fire issue is a big problem, a big concern. My brother-in-law is a firefighter in Boston, and with excess parking is on the street, causes a difficulty for fire trucks to maneuver. So I do like the extra floor to the design. I guess I'd ask you to consider going one more level and making an extra floor below grade. And then that way you get even more parking spaces. But I really feel that this project should have full accommodation for parking for all the units.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening, gentlemen. My name is Joseph Boyle. I live at 54 Laura Street, up in the Highlands. You might remember me.
Good evening, Mr. Boyle.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. It's nice to see you again.
Good to see you.
When I was appointed to this board 5.5 years ago, I called up my old boss in Fitchburg, the man that I interned under, and I asked him for his advice. And what he said to me is, don't just be a permitting board, be a planning board. And what he meant by that is that not to just think about things like, do they meet the parking numbers, and do they meet the setbacks, and these requirements under the zoning, but to actually engage in planning, engage in urban planning, and think about what a project, what a decision would mean in terms of the development of the neighborhood, development of the city, these broader themes. This board is pretty much the only body in the city that is charged with that sort of larger urban planning thinking. So I'm going to talk to you tonight about urban planning, and I'm going to talk to you tonight about the acre. Remember the acre? The applicant's representative described the location in his presentation of this project 3 times. He described it as between the university and downtown, connecting the university and the downtown. The university on one side and the downtown on the other. But that's not really true. This is in the acre. Lowell needs a strong acre. And the acre needs a strong Upper Merrimack Street district. If that area, which has had such a remarkable comeback over the last 10 or 15 years, becomes simply where the downtown peters out into the university, it will have serious detrimental effects on the overall development of the neighborhood. Mr. Chairman, may I please approach and present you with a document?
Sure.
Okay.
Is Monopoly Houses?
Yes, indeed.
Gee, where's Park Place on here?
The location of this project is the Upper Merrimack Street corridor. The Upper Merrimack Street area of the acre is a part of the city that was severely disrupted in the 20th century by urban renewal style development and redevelopment. The creation of super blocks instead of the more intimate little blocks that are traditional neighborhood design in Lowell. What I've presented you with is a map in which I've depicted the sections of the neighborhood that are built on super blocks or which don't have a pedestrian facade along it or which in some other way don't contribute to that traditional neighborhood design of the Upper Merrimack Street corridor. That's what's in orange. And then in green, I've colored green the properties that are that traditional neighborhood design in Lowell. Storefronts along the sidewalk, eyes on the street. You understand all of these things. Not the giant parking lots at the top of, along Pawtucket Boulevard, not the very large super-scale university building at the top of Merrimack Street. It's not to say this isn't simply the green is good and the orange is bad. Some of the orange stuff is very nice. The North Canal apartments are very positive, but they don't contribute to that traditional neighborhood design and pedestrian scale. Now, if you look at the plan, you can see that there's the green and there's the orange, but the way it's laid out, the Upper Merrimack Street corridor with the traditional neighborhood design is the heart of the neighborhood. It's a contiguous, continuous corridor
a couple of blocks wide that extends all the way from, from City Hall up to well, there are fragments almost all the way to Pawtucket Street. That is the heart of the district, and that is contiguous. Well, right now, the orange pieces are relegated out to the fringe and out to the edge, and they're fragmented from each other. And so, because the traditional neighborhood design has the pride of place in the neighborhood, and because it's in the center, and because it's contiguous, that defines the character of the neighborhood. I'd ask, as you've got that there, if you'd please place the red piece on top of the subject property.
Did he pass go?
And take a look at the green. See what that does? It takes our contiguous, continuous, large neighborhood corridor, and it fragments it into two little rump spaces, two little rump areas. At the same time, it connects the orange right at the very heart of the district. This subject property is the middle square on the tic-tac-toe board. And the way that it gets built out is going to determine the character of this neighborhood, whether we're going to continue to have this strong Upper Merrimack Street corridor of traditional neighborhood design, of pedestrian friendliness, or whether there's going to be a couple fragmented remnants of the old neighborhood within an area which becomes defined by super blocks, super scale buildings, and turning its back on the street. Now, this project, the fundamental idea of this project is wrong for the neighborhood. It has none of the assets that make Upper Merrimack Street what it is, that define that character. It's the same type of super scale development as the university's building. It would be creating a super block type of development. And it wouldn't be a boost for the neighborhood. It wouldn't be a boost for the acre. It would be a stake through its heart. I'm going to ask, this is a conceptual meeting. They're trying to get a read from the board about what the board wants. I'm going to ask you to send the applicant home tonight with a very clear message that you do not intend to permit this type of project. This site needs to be built out in a way that complements and strengthens and connects the Upper Merrimack Street corridor, not one that fragments the traditional old Lowell neighborhood design and gives the area over to the type of development that we know is so destructive to neighborhood character, quality of life, and economic viability. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Will. Sure, you can approach. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Jay Frazier. I'm a
1 second,
business
sir, let me
agent with
just
Local
finish
103.
What? Hold on 1 minute, thank you. Just wait till he gets back there so we can, thank you. Okay, go ahead, please, sir.
My name's Jay Frazier. I'm a business agent with Local 103. I'm also on the North Shore Building Trades. I'm sitting here tonight and I'm listening to everything that's being said, and it's all good stuff, and I'm looking around the room and I'm trying to figure out how many people actually went to college in the room. And I know this crew did. You can tell just by the way they're dressed. Any of you guys have a car in college? No, you didn't. You rode bikes, Uber. You know where I'm going with that? It's time to see a little different things. I don't know Lowell too well. I just took over as a business agent up here. I'm getting to know the town. I had pizza at Jimmy's. I gotta say that was pretty damn good. I walked this project. I saw needles. I saw an abandoned lot. Thought that was terrible. I see a nice looking project here. Kids are gonna walk to school, 3 blocks. They came back with 2 different proposals. They addressed this already. I think there's some underlying causes here. I think people are afraid not to get people upset. What's best for Lowell? I know what's best for this crew of guys over here, because those are the guys that are going to work together and build the damn thing. This guy right here has to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning to make it to town. He'd like to work in Lowell, where he lives. And never, ever, do you ever hear a developer come to a union and say, hey, I want you to build my project. You know why? Because we provide health care. We don't just offer it to them. We provide it. We give them a decent wage. We give them a pension. All these jobs that you see running around in Lowell, see Rhode Island license plates, New Hampshire license plates. I'm telling you, I'll fill that job with Lowell residents. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, gentlemen. I apologize. I don't have any notes. I had absolutely no intentions of actually talking tonight. But,
Let's have your name, please, for record.
hi, my name is Heather Hamlin. I currently reside in Dracut, but I grew up in Lowell. Now, I know the acre. I've been there far too many years. When I decided to go back to school and I got a degree in mechanical engineering at UMass, I couldn't live in Lowell. That's how I ended up in Dracut. Because when I decided that it was time for me to go and find my own place, you're right, or he's right. I walk down the streets and I see needles everywhere. I see unsafe areas where people I know have been pulled off and terrible things have happened to them. You have daughters? Everybody here knows a female. That's not an appropriate place for them. They need a safer area. And by all means, I don't want a safe zone. I don't need a safe room. But our children deserve an area where they're not going to be destroyed on their way to school. They're not going to get beat up. They're not going to step on a needle and all of a sudden they're contracting all these diseases. My children deserve better than that. I deserved better than that when I went to school. Instead, I had to find another way to school because I didn't have a car either. And my children probably won't either because I'm not buying them one. They have to do that all on their own. That's their job. Everybody deserves a safe place to live. And as great as the acre was to me when I was a child, not all of it's that great. And it could be improved. It needs it.
Thank you.
Good evening, gentlemen. James Leary, 449 Parker Street. First, I want to thank the updated information. I think this is something that we definitely need to take a look at further in terms of parking. I did go to college. I actually had a car. It actually never went anywhere because it was always stalled. It stayed in the parking spot all the time because I was too poor to make it run. But just to articulate the position, some college kids actually do have cars. I think the point that's concerning to me as a person who lives in the city, who's represented the city in the past, someone who's very interested in making sure the city is effective, is are we going to make sure that this is needed for dormitories for the city, for the UMass Lowell? You look at the Edge right now, it's about, what, a third full, I think? Those numbers accurate? It could be a moving target number. Right now, the argument in favor of the Edge is that they didn't have the building ready in term for the school year to begin. I think that's really a false argument. So the concern would be, is this really going to be dormitories for University of Massachusetts Lowell, or is it going to become other housing where folks will have cars and will need to have access to parking? So where this will be very important to what the group presented today, how they're going to deal with that. I think having union jobs, reaching out to them is a very important thing. I think it's very good for the city of Lowell, but you're going to need to really take a look at this 10, 20, 30 years down the road. What is this project going to do to the acre? What is this project going to do linking, as the proponents suggest, UMass Lowell to downtown? You're going to have a lot of changes in downtown. You're going to have a whole redeveloped connector in downtown. You're going to have a whole new area in terms of the innovation district, which eventually will be successful. Does this complement what we're trying to achieve? Now, you gentlemen have a very tough job. This is a preliminary hearing. Pulling that information together, I would strongly, if I could say to you, I strongly would suggest you take a strong look at, do we need more dorms for University of Mass Lowell at this point in time? If we do, then perhaps maybe that's a great project. If we don't, do we need these types of housing without the parking for that area? It's a tough decision to make. I'll reserve, judgment, because I think there's some additional information that we need to digest and pull together, and I don't envy your position because it's a very challenging position. Thank you very much, and have a great evening.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. My name is Larry Siegel, and I serve as the Associate Vice Chancellor for Student Affairs at the university. First, I would like to say that UMass Lowell truly values our role as a community partner, working with our neighbors, the city, local businesses, to implement development strategies that further economic revitalization and community enhancement. We have always been proud of our relationship with Jeanne d'Arc Credit Union and have admired its willingness to invest in Lowell for the betterment of our neighborhoods, the city, and the UMass Lowell campus. Mark Cochran and his team deserve a great deal of credit and recognition for their commitment. Businesses such as theirs, which support local nonprofits, community organizations, and student scholarships, are what makes this city of Lowell great. We are also very proud to have provided nearly $1 billion in prevailing wage construction work over the past decade. While UMass Lowell is unable to support the proposal before you this evening, we remain fully committed to working with Jeanne d'Arc, the neighborhood, and all interested parties in redeveloping this important parcel of land into something that would benefit the entire community and its citizens. The university has carefully and accurately projected enrollment and housing demand in order to effectively manage our operations, and we see no need for the proposed beds that this project would construct. The university believes that our current bed capacity will meet our needs for the foreseeable future. We also remain concerned that the proposed transportation, parking, and security plans may not adequately serve our students' needs. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening. My name is Christian Zouzis. I'm with the Transfiguration Greek Orthodox Church. That's the church with the blue domes right on the, it backs up to Salem Street, where it's about a block or two from this project. The Transfiguration has been right in here in the acre for close to 100 years. And about 10, 15 years ago, we put about a $4 million addition on the Transfiguration. So the Transfiguration is very committed to the acre and being right here in the city of Lowell. Myself, I've gone to that church for well over 50 years. And being the president for the last 5 years at the church, one of my duties is trying to bring in revenue. As you see, a lot of the churches in the area and throughout the country are closing its doors due to the financial hardships. People are going less to church. But also, the churches are places that their mission is to help the homeless and the disadvantaged. And being right here in the acre, we do a lot with the projects right next door. And one of my tasks is to try to generate revenue. And so we have this big, huge parking lot in the back. And about 5 years ago, I had rented out the back parking lot to the Lowell Collegiate Charter School, which has since moved over to the Middlesex Street. And with that additional revenue, we were able to purchase the abutting property up at Club Lafayette property and turn it into an outreach center in which we provide community meals on a monthly basis there. And so when the school left, I looked at ways we could generate additional revenue in order to continue the mission of the church to help the neighborhood and the homeless and the disadvantaged. So I walked across the street to the University of Mass Lowell parking director's office, which is right off of Salem Street, and I explained to them I have 120 turnkey parking spots here, and they could start parking tomorrow. They declined that. They were basically busing kids from the city of Lowell Water Department up at the high-tech park. So I figured it would be a lot easier, the kids walking across the street, than busing them 3 to 4 miles away on a daily basis. But in any event, they had declined. And these folks came along and told me about their project. I made arrangements with them that they could use our parking lot. We can use it on the weekends, and that would provide the additional revenue that the church could use in order to feed the homeless and the hungry in the area. You know, irregardless of whether this project gets approved or not approved, this parcel of land's been sitting there vacant for well over 10 years. Every day when I go back and forth to the church, I'm looking at the overgrown weeds, the fencing, and it's really a disaster area sitting there. So something needs to be done there, and this project here would bring activity to this area. And like this gentleman said before, bringing activity to the area brings a safer space for the area. So I think it would be definitely a great thing to have kids walking around back and forth up and down these streets on a constant basis. So that's all I'd have to say. Thank you.
Can I just ask you a question on that? So would they be parking at your site 7 days a week?
Yes, yes.
But you said we use it on the weekends.
I have a row in the back reserved on Sundays.
Okay.
On the weekends.
And how much money are they going to give you for 120 parking spots?
It's in the lease there.
Can you answer my question?
$60,000 a year. That's net expenses. So if you add, there's another $2,000 to $3,000 a month in expenses. So it's typically about, it's well over.
What's the expense that you have to have a car park?
Snow removal, lighting, repairs, maintenance, constant security.
And they're going to charge the students for this, so they'll be passing that on to the students, right?
I don't know what the arrangements is, but they're maintaining.
Well, they told us they're going to have two different phases of parking. One's going to be a higher price, and one's going to be a lower price. So I don't know if yours is the higher or lower. I would assume it's the lower if it's furthest away.
Well, the $60,000 is net expenses, so all the expenses relating to that back parking lot is their responsibility.
So you'd still have enough parking for the church on the weekends if you had the 120 parking spaces full by students?
Yeah, we are, because we purchased the abutting property up the street, which has 100 additional parking spots. So we have control of those parking spots on the upper lots, which is about 220 parking spots.
And how far is that from the church?
It's on the church property.
Okay, but you said it was up the street.
No, up on the other side of the church building, I mean.
Okay.
So the Club Lafayette building, which is on Fletcher Street,
I know Club Lafayette is.
that has about 100 parking spots. And we have another lot right next to that, next to the Club Lafayette parking, which has about 60, 70 parking spots.
Because you don't want to move your church parking people too far away from the church, right?
No, there's plenty of parking there.
But how far away they have to walk now to go to church?
No, it's still on the same. It's still on the same parking lot.
Okay, all right. Okay. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Brendan Dowling. I live at 60 Douglas Road, and I'm a local 103 member. I've lived in Lowell my entire life. Anybody who's ever met me for more than 2 seconds knows that I'm from Lowell. I take a ton of pride in being from the city. I hear people here tonight saying that it's going to rip apart the fabric of the community. When I was little, I played football, and we practiced down at the Common, and we'd walk the Common before the practices and pick up needles. And I think any opportunity that Lowell has to replace, something that's been abandoned and put in its place something that's going to bring in students and bring in revenue to the city and feed into Lowell's economy, I think it could be a very positive thing for the city. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else want to speak? Anyone else? Okay. Thank you all for speaking. We appreciate that.
Mr. Chairman, I wanted to read just a couple of sections from the master plan. With respect to this section of the Merrimack Street corridor, from the master plan, it would state here that the master plan would specifically target areas of anticipated residential growth, such as the upper Merrimack corridor, East Campus, and downtown for pedestrian improvements. In another section of the master plan, it asks to identify areas with convenient access to the university and Middlesex Community College that would be suitable for the development of new student housing, including off-campus dormitories, which will generate tax revenue for the city and offset costs of providing public safety and infrastructure services to students. So we're pointing out these two sections of the master plan, which we've incorporated in our application. And one of the important comments that we got back before, and I remember this because I had commented that, and made a comment on this before, and that is contained in this master plan, with sufficient parking. And that was something that we remember from that. We take very seriously that this development is something that we'll be looking to in the master plan with sufficient parking. So we have the economic benefits provided. We believe that there's a need for the business analysis that was done by Mr. Fridelli with respect to a private dormitory within just a few blocks of the main campus that would be in demand, that would be a dormitory, and it would be permitted as a dormitory. It would not be available for housing for anyone but students. Now, that would be a requirement of the permit. That's a requirement of the use. And that is something that we, of course, would have to 100% comply with. And that the applicant has a track record of running these types of projects, and they have been successful. Now, we will go ahead and redo our plans, which will have the, I believe it's two levels of parking plus the 5 levels of the residence, 7 levels total, which right now our calculations are such that it will comply with zoning. And so we will do that to come back with those new plans for you. And as we said before, we've had a lot of input tonight. There are no assurances that we can expect to obtain from the board. We understand that everything is done with respect to the submission of the public hearing and testimony given in the public hearing. However, we would like the input from the board with respect to this new proposal that we have that would put the parking on site.
Me personally, I wouldn't tell you which way to go. That's totally up to you. Because no matter what plan you come in and give us, we're going to get comments from all 7 of our city departments. So if I say, I want the parking garage, and they have comments on it that says the other one works better, you come back and say, well, you told us to build a garage, and now you're not going through with it. So no way, no way am I giving you insurances to come in option 1 or 2. The way I look at it as a planning board member, you present the plan, we approve it, or we deny it. You pick the way you want to come, you come in. You've been told all along you need parking for the site. That's all I'll say. So I'm not telling you which way to go.
Well, that's along the lines that we expect to
That's all
hear.
I'm going to I'm not going to come out and say, do it this way. Then you come back, oh, we did what you told me to. No, I'm not doing that. It's a preliminary matter. We don't guarantee anything. We don't come out and say what we're going to vote, how we're going to do it. No, because we don't have all the facts in front of us to come out and say we want one plan over the other. But the question I do have is, how I read your analysis and I read UMass Lowell analysis. UMass Lowell says they don't have the student population that's going to fill these dorms, and you think you do. Their numbers have been going down over the years, and you keep telling us the numbers are going up. I'd like to think that UMass Lowell knows their capacity a little better than the applicant. So can you explain to me why you think you know better than what the university's numbers is, and why you feel that this dormitory is necessary and is going to be full if another dormitory that is downtown is not full, but everybody's going to come here and fill this one, but not the existing ones?
We'd like to have Mr. Dan Thorne from Fidelity Investments answer that question for you.
Hi, good evening. So if I could, I did some of the research and analysis on the market, so I can offer some comments in response to that question. So obviously, the university has done a very thorough analysis, and I think when you look at, just as a starting point, let's start with where we agree on our analysis with the universities, is that they have predicted to have fewer than 5,000 beds on campus. So, and they have approximately 18,000 students enrolled at the university. So our analysis and their analysis shares both these points. And the primary difference is not about the 5,000 beds or fewer that the university has on campus, or the approximately 18,000 students enrolled at the university. The difference in our analysis is really a matter of choice and looking at what are the options for those students who are going to have to live off campus. Where are they going to live? And as a matter of our business plan and the way we operate our buildings, we have to have confidence in the plan that we have, that we will be able to offer an attractive value proposition to some portion of 12 or 13,000 students. Roughly 3% of those would have to choose our project as being an attractive place to live. So that's sort of the starting point with our analysis. And we think, we would like to we believe very strongly in our business plan and in our ability to offer a very desirable and attractive place for students to live. We've been very successful in multiple other markets, and we have a lot of experience, and we partner with a lot of highly experienced people, whether it's from starting with the design process, working with architects who have very deep level of expertise in designing a building, right through to the operations and working with property management companies who are highly specialized and have deep level expertise in running and managing student housing. Over 20,000, the property manager that we are going to be working with has over 20,000 beds that they manage and oversee. So every morning they wake up and they're responsible for the safety and the care and the well-being and the experience of students, 20,000 students under their management. And and I guess, I think it's also important to remember that, every business it's hard for us to comment on a competitor's business plan and how they operate and manage their business, but it's no different than any other business. If you have a restaurant, one restaurant can fail or succeed right next door to another restaurant. And there are very specific and detailed items that we have seen some other property managers, owners, and private dorm operators do that we would never do, starting with the design. Our project, as our architect talked about, has bed bath parity, for example. It's very important for students today who are millennials, are often in smaller families, have larger houses than 20, 30 years ago, have never shared a bedroom. And they're looking for housing where they don't share a bedroom. And some competing product has been designed with double occupancy. So you have a 2-bedroom unit with 4 beds. And it's simply not a choice that students looking for housing are desiring. And that can be a challenging feature. So, there's a lot of differences in our business, and we'd like our project, rather than, speak negatively about somebody else's business and operations, we'd like our project to be reviewed on the merits. And we have a very strong track record. And we believe that of the 12,000 students enrolled at the university who will not find a bed there, we believe that we have a strong plan that will successfully offer a value and a desirable place for 400 or so of them to live.
And if you didn't fill the unit, then what would be the plan?
Well, As George mentioned, we have to, our certificate of occupancy is tied to the dormitory use, and we only can rent to students.
I get that. So what if you get 10% of the units filled? What are you going to do? What if you get half? What are you going to do? So
Well,
say if you only get half of all the people that come in, what are you going to do?
Hi, gentlemen.
You guys are going to leave town and we'll be still sitting here.
Bill Fidelli from the applicant. The simple answer is there's always a market clearing rent.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you over there. Simon.
So the simple answer is there's always a rent where somebody will choose to live here. And so if in that scenario there was not demand like we think there is, which again, just to state what Dan had previously said, our analysis does not bring us to that conclusion. But if there were that case, we could always reduce the rent to a level that would lead to occupancy.
So you think if you just keep lowering the rent, more students will walk in?
In your question that you proposed,
Mhm.
there's always, my answer to that is there's a rent that people will rent. So if you go to the neighborhood property that's renting at a set level, if we were to match that rent, for example, they have a
They
choice.
have to be students, right?
They have to be 100%, we have to
I got
comply
that,
with
okay.
zoning. Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so you go to neighborhood property, you lower the rent.
Just to give you a little sense as to rents, we have contemplated where we are today that our rents are going to be less expensive than like-kind housing on campus.
Okay. So that doesn't mean it's going to get filled, right?
That's a risk we are willing to take. Now, just to,
And so if it doesn't get full, what's the alternative?
again,
You're going to lower the rent and say if they still don't come in. What's the alternative? I'm sure you have a backup plan. You said you've done all this backup response, all this, your criteria. University says you're not going to meet it. You say you're going to meet it. So I'm sure you've done a lot of digging in. Plus, when the university mentions students, they also mention students who take online classes. So most people who are on online class don't move into a dormitory. Correct?
we are only allowed to rent, according to zoning, we can only
I
rent
understand
to students.
I understand that.
And so we are not looking to rent to non-students. And
Understand that.
so the answer is, of the 12,000 or so roughly students that need to every single day come off campus, that the vast majority of them are living outside the city. So of the
That
students.
are in the city, at home with their families and residents, which a lot of people in the city of Lowell
Yes,
do.
yes.
Okay,
So,
so not all of them live outside the city,
Understood.
correct?
So.
You agree that people in Lowell actually go to school at Lowell?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So.
And they live at home?
I'm sure that there are some that do.
I know several, and that's why I should ask.
And so what we're saying is the percentage that we need to reach 100% occupancy is approximately 3%. And so to answer your question more thoroughly, if for whatever reason we aren't able to get that 3%, my answer is at some point there's a rent that we do get to that 3%.
So you think that, would that still cover all your costs for your security and everything else if you keep dropping that price?
It would have to. If worse comes to worse, we would step in and put in more equities to support the transaction.
Then wouldn't it
Board member
basically-
Frechette, I believe you are a lender, and so in the downside scenario that Chairman Linehan is suggesting, you would come to a borrower, and there would be essentially a call, put in more equity. And so to answer your question more thoroughly, we have the financial wherewithal to step in and support this transaction if necessary. Now, again, we do not believe that there is insufficient demand. In fact, we believe there is overwhelming demand for this asset. There is what we consider a massive supply-demand imbalance. And so, in this case, the quality of life we are offering the residents is private bedrooms and private bathrooms, washers and dryers, a full kitchen. It's a full apartment that they, as a student, can enjoy. We believe that that type of accommodation will reach very high occupancy. There is very little, if any, of that accommodation in walking distance to the campus.
Did you consider at all doing a retail project? I mean, for apartments for students and non-students at all at one point, instead of just a dorm?
No, we did not. We felt that this was an excellent location for student housing. And so I'm a parent of children who are about to go to college. I want my children, if and when they live off campus, to live in walking distance to campus. This is a location that promotes that. As we mentioned previously, we felt it was in the best interest of the local neighborhood to help other developers who were looking to do projects. We thought that this would be an economic catalyst to redeveloping the area and the immediate community. If the board and the citizens feel it's in the best interest to satisfy parking on site with the 50 spaces from the city, we're ready, willing, and able to do that. We're just trying to, to help be a good citizen. We've heard that parking is an issue. Again, let me reiterate, we're happy to satisfy parking on site. And so, just a correction.
So you're gonna keep, to answer my question, is you'd keep lowering the price until it's full?
In that scenario, yes.
Basically your question? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, all right. And you think no matter how much you lower it, then you'll finally eventually fill it?
Correct. I don't believe that will be necessary.
I mean, yeah, I would believe that that would be your reasoning to come before us and say that. I get that, there's two sides to every stone, yeah. So, I get it. But that was just a question I had, was what happens if it doesn't get full and it sits there? Because now, if you came in with apartments, so if it was a mixed use, so then you could have regular retail and regular apartments, and if the students don't work out, then you rent it out to everybody else. Because now you're coming in asking for reduced open space, reduced parking, everything else for the dorm, where compared to like when we had the Edge, that was a downtown mixed-use zoning, so that already has all those facilities, where you're coming in, reducing, asking for everything to be reduced down, so if the project doesn't prevail, and if it comes back in, then they have to come in and ask for everything to all be reduced to start over to meet the requirement that would not satisfy the dorm requirement, which is so reduced in numbers.
And that's why this is what is described as a single-purpose building, a dormitory, and designed that way as a dormitory, and that the business plan that Mr. Fideli has put in front of you is to go ahead and to aggressively market this and to get this fully tenanted. And we don't have a crystal ball, can't say it,
I
but
understand
it
that,
is.
I'm just asking simple questions.
But it's not something that we would, and that we would anticipate coming back and doing, and then creating, open up a whole nother scenario by asking for all of that relief, which right now, of course, does not exist because it's requested to be permitted as a dormitory specifically, which is permissible under the ordinance, renting to students.
Okay, I have no questions. Any board members have any questions?
Just, Mr. Chairman, just a couple of comments, I guess, and what was put out there this evening. I mean, we received a lot of paperwork leading up to this meeting, and DPD. I mean, Christina, was this the first time you heard of that? Just before the meeting. So to really want quality feedback from the board, and that's the purpose of having a pre-application hearing. I'm not prepared to give you much of a comment on that one way or the other. I think you can go back to the minutes, you can look at the tapes. The concern was, and to your credit, you certainly, of course, you've been hit over the head with it. Parking is a tremendous issue. But also how it interacts with the neighborhood was a major issue. And even other plans talk about this area as really a mixed-use area, and it's really where you start that retail flavor of the neighborhood as well. And I didn't see, we didn't have a lot of discussion about that at all this evening. And then when you put another level on this building, I have no idea what that's going to look like and how that's going to look internally. Whether that's going to affect any of the space you're talking about, and what is that retail space that you're proposing as well.
We can state that the retail space that we have, that we created there on Merrimack Street, will stay.
With the other level?
Yes, yes, that will stay. That we're committed to. And that's approximately 1,800, 2,000 feet. So we are committed to that, and that have that active street front, which we have, which is designed, that active street front on Merrimack Street is, as well. That's part of the design, and that will stay.
And then there was the concern also on
Market Street.
Market Street.
Yeah, what we did with Market Street is break it up by putting the other doorway entrance over there to try to break it up and to bring down, so, and also to redesign it so the brick doesn't go all the way up, so that it's not that full brick front as you walk up, and put the street lighting along there as well. So that is a security measure to have this building well lit, and to have that well lit, to have that a little bit more inviting of an area there to walk through and walk by. So that was also done on the other side.
I think the intent was, or at least the concern that we raised is somehow to create a situation where you'd have more activity on that side of the building.
It's difficult to design it on that side because of the slope, and that's part of where the parking is over there as well. So we couldn't go into and create any other space. This parking there is all along that side.
So obviously,
And the grade as well. It's lower on that side, on the Market Street side.
and I mean, that's a challenge in the, and I have to say, it is a very real concern about the viability of these projects. And I think it's something that the city has to have a major discussion on beyond this project. We have a university that doesn't seem encouraged to work with the private dorms, so that's a concern. And they have their concerns. I don't even know if that's something that's a national issue, or if that's unique to University of Lowell, UMass Lowell. And, but obviously that's a concern. With that as an option on the books right now, I think we're going to be probably looking at this as a challenge even down, Councilor Finner just made. So obviously, I think that's a legitimate concern. And there are other issues that it could still end up in the hands of the university if it doesn't work. And I believe that we still haven't solved the issue with the tax implication to the taxpayers of the city of Lowell. So I think that there's just a lot of concerns with this. To put it in perspective, the two that are out there right now on Marginal Street, that was the first one. We wanted to tie it to the university. That was the first one, and quite frankly, we stumbled right out of the block because it was clear, it became clear, apparent after we attempted to really tie it to the university, that you can't do that. So that created some issues. And the edge was really, what the chairman alluded to is that really the saving grace with that is it was you can stumble out of that door and you'll hit the AOT parking garage. It's right there. And then you just turn to your left and you can see the John Street parking garage. It doesn't get any, I mean, so quite frankly, if it even goes to market use, which is not the intended purpose, but if that was the case, there would be some options there. The concern with this site here is there's no options. There's no options. We talk about it. I mean, even, offering up the $800,000 for a parking garage towards the expense of a parking garage, because everybody recognizes that the acre right now has a real problem with that. So, again, those are the concerns. We still have the public hearing. But, those were the concerns that were expressed at the last meeting, so I'm not telling you anything new, I don't believe. And that is that's the crux of it, is that it really is a large project, very dense project. And to be honest with you, the type of amenities and the type of units that were described to make it attractive are also very convertible to regular apartments. They're made to be regular apartments.
But why would that prejudice it?
But no. But that is the concern that I think is warranted by everybody that's looking at this, that what happens if it doesn't succeed? What happens? Because the truth of the matter is, it's just like we dealt with the mill project that came before us. We say this. To convert these mills, I don't know what the cost of this project is going to be, $20 million, $30 million, I honestly don't know. But so it fails. You honestly think the city's gonna say to tear it down?
No, that's
So
never the case.
So now we're gonna have the Market Mills sitting here in front of the boards and saying, "You know, how do we deal with this?" So, again, that's, it hasn't changed. That concern hasn't changed. So, again, those are my thoughts on this. Like I said, I certainly wish we had had that information prior to this evening to kind of digest that a little bit. I think even for the residents that took the time to come out. And I would encourage everybody that has a concern, or if you're in favor of it, and think of why you're in favor of it, or why you have concerns and are against it, is obviously to come to the public hearing, because that is where the official record will lie as to how a decision is rendered. So, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Snitsky?
I have one question. Earlier, I believe it was Mr. Simonelli mentioned approximately 3,000 square feet of retail space. You, Mr. Theodore,
That could have been my mistake.
2,000?
It is 3.
Okay,
Yeah.
because I want to see more rather than less.
It is 3.
Thank you.
Any questions, Bob?
Yeah, I just have one. If you're adding it, your proposal is to add another floor. I really want to see a shadow analysis of what this building will do to the surrounding neighborhood, summer and winter.
We'll see if we can provide that. It'll be 7 stories, 5 stories of the dwellings and 2 floors of the parking.
Yeah. But it's still going to be sticking up there in the sky. And
It'll be up there to be.
covering other buildings.
It's
with
larger
shadow.
than the Lowell Housing Authority, which is across the street, but that I believe is 7 stories as well.
Yeah, but their shadow thing is going on different properties that don't have that now. They're living with that, but this is a new construction.
Yeah, just to speak to the height again, if we were to add a second level of parking, right now we have a substantially tall first floor to give nice space to the retail and the other amenities on the ground floor. We would maintain that height and actually grow it while putting a bit shorter level of parking, and the building wouldn't grow more than 5 feet from what we have right now, keeping within the 70-foot height range that we're required. So it actually wouldn't be much taller than you're seeing on that rendering right there. It would just be using the same space and dividing it a little more efficiently.
But he can still ask for a shadow rendering, right?
I'm agreeing. I'm just letting you know that it won't
We can
be.
request that from the board, yeah.
It won't be.
Because it has effect on the character of the neighborhood, as it says under the special permit you're requesting for.
Just letting you know what you can see.
I'll let you know, yep. Okay, well, thank you. We'll see you February 22nd.
Thank you very much.
Good night. And thank everybody else. Thank everyone who came down this evening. We appreciate your input.
Thank you.
Okay, moving along on the agenda, we have comments from any of the further planning board members?
Mr. Chairman, can I, just to Christine, I went out on a website. Could we have the updated zoning ordinance put out there? I would appreciate that. And I'm sure the residents of the city of Lowell, of course, not everybody gets excited about the updated zoning ordinance.
Because that would be what went into effect in December, when the council
Right,
voted.
exactly.
And then a few of the matters were continued, which haven't been taken up yet, right?
No, they were taken out.
I think the concerns in your recommendation were adopted as part of the change, but a couple were taken out before they got to you.
Oh, okay. So I know we had three concerns. And the first
So I misspoke. One got taken out. They just didn't do it as the crow flies, as the traveled way, although that had nothing to do with private dorms. But they incorporated the pilot language concern, and
They didn't change it, they just adopted it as written, right?
no, they changed the language.
Oh, did they?
Yep.
Oh, can we, see, that's why I was looking for,
They changed it to address your concern, Member Frechette. I was just looking at it. The applicant shall record a deed restriction on the property for the benefit of the city of Lowell, stating that the property shall not be transferred to a non-taxpaying entity except in the event that such entity agrees to pay an annual payment in the amount of what would otherwise be equivalent to the real estate taxes on the property for as long as the entity owns the property.
Gotcha. And then the other one you had, I think, was the square footage on...
on the micro businesses.
Right.
So, yeah, that was also taken out for further study.
Okay, all right, good.
So they adapted one of the three.
Okay.
1 out of 3.
And then
So
I
we
just.
get a failing grade.
Yeah. No, the other two was good, because we had concerns about it, so, yeah. And then the other question is more semantics. In the zoning ordinance, we refer to what happened tonight as a pre-application hearing, and we're putting on our agenda preliminary. And it's throwing me off, to be honest with you, too, and I'm getting some phone calls. And the zoning ordinance specifically refers to it as pre-application. Somewhere, and we always refer to it as pre-application, and somewhere it got changed to preliminary. And again, it's more semantics, I get it, but
Yeah,
you can't find it anywhere in the zoning ordinance, so.
Okay. Anything further from board members? No. Christine, any updates for us? I mean, obviously, on the 22nd, we have this, which will take all night.
We have this project, 25 Merrimack Street, which is a special permit. Actually, it's one of the new ones, the Downtown Overlay District.
Yeah.
230 to 234 Appleton Street, which is an existing 9. They want to redevelop into 15. They came in last fall for a pre-application.
The transmission shop up there.
Yeah.
Yes, and we also have the Tanner Street subdivision preliminary scheduled to come before you, and that's part of the realignment that the city's doing. We anticipate that they will be filing, the agenda deadline's February 8th to be an agenda item on that meeting.
And I do believe on our subdivision control plans, it's preliminary for subdivision.
Yes.
Okay. All right, so we have a full agenda that night, so the Tanner Street one hasn't made the agenda yet?
No, but we expect it. Well, we received preliminary plans that we offered comments on in the event that the city is the applicant, that the engineer would turn it around to be on the agenda.
Oh, the city's the applicant.
Yes.
Is there a lot to it? Is there a lot, I mean, what is that?
Yes.
Yeah, is there? Yeah.
Okay. Make a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion made and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Good night, we're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.